Will the Ravens trade down in the 2022 NFL Draft? We talk about that and more with a very special guest next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we've returned here with another episode of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire. We're here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube. And we're here on a Friday episode after a technical difficulty-ish Thursday episode where the audio version, it wouldn't come out for like an hour. The place we use to put out the episodes, the audio was processing for a while, but sometimes you just have to deal with technology. So technology was not a friend of the show yesterday, but a friend of the show joining us here today is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail. Q, we're less than a week away from the 2022 draft. Can you believe that? How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Yes, we are. The draft is steadily approaching us, and all the offseason drama of who's going where is going to be revealed then. I just literally finished taping my TV show and quickly changed and all that. I'm on my mobile device, so if my hands flutters around and moves around, excuse me. I hope that we, as always, will have a great show and talk some good Ravens content.
No, absolutely. And whether it's mobile or on the computer or whatnot, the analysis is what counts. And we're going to do plenty of that here today. And I want to start off, Q. Your position is in the news recently. It has been for the last couple of months. And let's start off with the Ravens related news. Miles Boykin being released by the team, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers on waivers. This was a move we talked about for a while, but now that it's actually happened, how are you feeling about it, especially now that he is now with an AFC rival?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's showing how extremely difficult it is to, you're a third round pick. You get moved up. You're thinking, wow, this is going to be great. It's going to be a great fit for me. I'm going to be able to go out there and show what I can do and all the things. And what winds up happening is it takes a lot. It takes an awful lot. You got to have a lot of things go your way when it comes to, playing professional football and lasting in this league, sustaining in this league, and it's all about production. What have you done for me lately? And so I think for Miles Boykin, your best ability is your availability, your ability to go out there and show up day in and day out, week in and week out, and be productive. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. So it's disappointing, I'm sure, for him, his family, and I know Eric DaCosta. That was his first draft. To be a part of that, and he wanted to, shore up the receiving core, give some weapons to his dynamic, quarterback. And so for him to lose a Miles Boykin, I'm sure it was tough. It was a big pill to swallow, but you're also talking about, life in NFL. It's never predictable. There's the predictability is the unpredictable nature of it all. So hopefully, he will catch on. Hopefully he will be able to play well, and I wish him the best, except for 2 times a year. But I think he definitely has the talent. I just hope he can put it all together.
Yeah, and it's just something he was never really able to do. Him and Lamar Jackson never really on the same page, it seems like. And it all just kind of came into, well, the Ravens need some cap space. They don't have a ton of guys who can give them that. Cutting Boykin saves them around $2.5 million. So, yeah, of course, wishing Boykin the best, except for those 2 times where he suits up against the black and purple in the Baltimore Ravens. But, Q, there's another big market or big name wide receiver apparently on the market now, potentially. We don't know, but Deebo Samuel reportedly requesting a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. And this is another one of these players who we have talked about in terms of DK Metcalf and Tyreek Hill. Should the Ravens make a move for a wide receiver? We have had that conversation, but Deebo Samuel is such a unique player. Now, there are other reports that he doesn't like the way he is being utilized, would like to be more of a wide receiver. But if you're the Ravens, you see Deebo Samuel available, and if the price is right draft capital-wise, if they can sign him to that long-term extension, would Deebo Samuel be a player you would want in a Baltimore uniform, all those things considered?
Boy, there's a lot of ifs. if you can do all those things, and if you can get Hollywood Brown under contract as well, because I'm sure he's going to be like, well, you just set the bar on what a receiver. Now, of course, his credentials, Debo's, are a little bit more extensive than what we see with Hollywood's. I know that, but he is a 1,000-yard receiver. He is coming off a very productive year. Um, yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean, I think Hollywood Brown has absolutely put himself in position to have a good conversation to get an extension. But I think Deebo raises the bar and raises the talent in the room when it comes to the way in which he could be utilized with a Greg Roman offense. With already, you have a quarterback who is very dynamic with the run pass option, and just all the things that you can do because of the talent or another talent that will be added to the roster. That defensively now guys got to have their eyes on a swivel because you don't know where the ball is going to be going. And so that's something that I would say, and I would look at strongly as far as, hey, can we get a Deebo Samuels, and what is the ultimate price tag? If it's something that Eric DeCosta can feel he can live with, I would say roll the dice.
Right, and just it's crazy to like imagine Deebo Samuel in this offense with Marquise Brown and Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews and potentially a healthy J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and obviously Lamar Jackson. It's like, who are you defending if you're an opposing defense? But it does come down to the draft capital you'd have to give up, the contract you'd have to sign them to, and the Ravens have talked about how they love the draft, and the draft, they like having those swings and the high up pick they have in number 14. They don't have that very often. So is trading the 14th pick worth it for Deebo Samuel? I mean, look, I think it is. Other people might think not, but he's a dynamic player. I think he could be a really nice option for them. But Q, the Ravens had some press conferences. They've had them over the past couple of weeks, but a couple of days ago, you had Steve Saunders talking to the media, Patrick Queen, Patrick Ricard, Justin Madubuike as well, and a few others. What did you take away from those press conferences, if anything, from a couple of those people?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, from a Steve Saunders standpoint, I can see where he's, implementing he wants to make it clear that yes, they have a high level of respect for the injury issue. They also recognize that football is an inherent part of the game to have those injuries. I think what they've changed in some respects, it's the I know we can't beat these guys down and have all that wear and tear and expect it to be okay. Um, but with that said, as much as I heard them discussing the energy system and trying to really, kind of ramp things up as opposed to just starting off at the top, but kind of gradually getting into it. So, the guys can have a level of durability, again, as I've said, and I don't come, at it lightly. I know that, I'm a sports and performance coach. I practice the GOTA methodology as a GOTA performance coach, and you got to address the foot and ankle complex. You got to get away from reverse gear lifting type movement. You must go with the forward gear movement. That forward gear movement, that ability to be locomotive, that ability to have that elastic strength, to be dynamic and explosive, brings a level of durability, which is what you want for your football team. And, unfortunately, I think, from the video that we saw of them doing their workouts, there's still some work to be done when it comes to having a proper understanding on how to keep guys explosive, powerful, yet also durable. And I think that's something that's concerning to me. The overall picture, sure, the setup and the dynamic of all the metrics and everything, yeah, you can geek yourself out on that, but let's stick with the foundation. The foundation has to be the foot ankle complex, how it, interacts with the ground, and make sure you have protocols set up to enhance your body, not harm your body.
Right. And there are so many different ways to train nowadays. And there are some that are obviously much more effective and much safer than others. And it feels like what the Ravens have done is they understand. I agree with you. They understand that the injury thing was a huge concern. They need to change stuff up. And I've been liking what I've been hearing about them, implementing different strategies, different things like that. But it's also, I feel like a learning process for them where you mentioned some of the stuff that they can still implement. I feel like they still have time to do that if they so choose and if they so want to. It's just a matter of how they end up approaching it. So we'll see how that all works out. But it does seem like they are implementing some pretty big changes in terms of what they are doing. And we'll just see how it goes throughout the rest of the offseason and what the results are throughout the 2022 season as well. We'll head into our first break here now, though. When we get back, we'll be diving into if the Ravens could trade down in the 2022 draft. So be sure to stay tuned. Still a ton to talk about on Locked On Ravens. But first, let me tell you a bit about Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for the fraction of the price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, and a premium high-end finish as well. And something you won't find anywhere else is the Shady Rays Insane Protection Program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They'll send you a brand new pair if you lose them no matter what happened. You can give them a try. And if you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. So if you're like me and you've maybe lost them at a beach or ran over them with your car, Shady Rays is the place for you. Plus, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays. Exclusive for our listeners, head to shadyrays.com. Use code LOCKEDON to get 50% off for 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for their best deal of the season. 50% off for 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses, backed by over 150,000 5-star reviews. And we're going to tell you a bit about Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your sports betting stats and info. Find the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news in this year's basketball playoffs to start a Major League Baseball season. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sports wagering information from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website, use your mobile device to sign up and learn more about the trends in action. Bet Online, where the game starts. We're back here. Our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with Qadry Ismail and Q. There's been a lot of discussion about just what the Ravens will do throughout this 2022 draft. It's coming up. We talked about it less than a week, but at number 14, they could trade up, they could trade down, they could stay put. But I wanted to focus with you today on just the trade down possibilities this team could have, because there is what I call like a nightmare board where there are like no quarterbacks taken, no wide receivers taken. All of a sudden you have 5 edge guys off the board, 4 corners off the board, defensive tackles. And if you're sitting there near the Ravens, you're like, what do we do here? There could be teams that want to move up for a quarterback, move up for a wide receiver. When would you want to trade down if you're the Ravens? What situation would you say a trade down would be warranted for this team at 14?
So I think from a need standpoint, we're looking over at the defensive side of the ball. I know that there were some smoke and mirrors as far as, what Eric DaCosta was trying to say and do, and that's just par for the course as far as how you look at the draft, and typically you try not to give a lot of information away. But they're not going to get a quarterback. You don't really need one. You definitely don't necessarily need a first round at 14th position tight end, because you already got Mark Andrews. You did your free agent thing when it came to, tackle. So you did your tackle thing. You got a safety, thing. So you're all good with that Williams in the fold. So you're checking off all those boxes, right? Now, when it comes to what the draft is showing, and if you're right, if there is a run on a position, whatever that position is, and if it's one of those positions what we just, went over when it comes to the Ravens picking and saying, well, we really don't need a quarterback, and somebody else feels like, well, we got to jump up and get somebody good, then I would say whatever that run on, and if that run on puts the Ravens in a position of strength, I think the more draft choices, and we've seen that, from a perspective of Steve Bisciotti geeking out on what draft capital actually looks like. You already got your owner in favor of it, and that the more bodies that you can get in the camp, the better opportunity to evaluate. Bring it on. Bring on all the different scenarios and what we're looking at to get more picks and trade out of even if you have to trade out of the first round or trade all the way to the bottom, it doesn't matter. The main thing is making sure that what your board looks like, that you're going to have enough. So if, the 3 rush-in guys that you wanted weren't there, you're going to have enough because you can covet a middle linebacker that is going to be there, or another edge rusher is going to be there, or whatever it might be. from an interior D lineman standpoint. Those are things that I kind of look at, and I would say would cause me to want to be that aggressive and go down and allow whomever to move up in the draft.
Right, and there will be teams, I feel like, around that area, around the 14th pick, that will be calling and saying, "Yeah, we want to move up for this wide receiver or this quarterback," and the Ravens can get more value maybe than expected out of that 14th pick to maybe only move down 6 slots or 8 slots or 10 slots. So that could be an option for them. But Q, what would be the ideal trade package for you in terms of a trade down? Is this something that you wouldn't do unless there's a future first attached, or 2 firsts, or maybe a first, a second, 2 seconds, 2 future seconds? Where are you looking in terms of a trade down package if you're the Ravens?
I would say at 14, you're gonna have to give me some value. And I'm not gonna go Jimmy Johnson on you like I know at the back of my hand, but he was the one to say you can't just swap for swap. There's a certain value for that pick for other picks to equal that. And so that Jimmy Johnson rule still is in play to today. And so at 14, I just say this, like, you're looking at second round, mid second round, and a possible, just trading out, what, 20, somewhere in the 20s, you're going to be, say just throwing it out there, 25th pick, and you're going to give me a second and 2/3. Mother of pearl, let's do that. That's up my alley. I'm liking what you're selling.
Yeah, that's a hole right there. And there's an interesting question I want to ask you, because I actually just thought about this. Would you trade, if you're the Ravens, from the 14th pick all the way to the second round? So no first round pick. Let's say 33, right? The top of the second round, very top. Would you trade 14 for, let's say, 33, another second round pick, and then like a future first and a future second? Is that something you would consider if you're the Ravens?
I would. Again, it depends on who's coming off the board and what is my board looking like as far as the quality of players that are left. Like, if there's some first round talent type players that are left, the likes of a J.K. Dobbins, but on the defense side of the ball, heck yeah, come on, I'm all for it.
It feels like there are just so many possibilities with trade downs, and it almost seems like that is the more likely option. But I want to get your opinion on whether you feel like trading down is the more likely option for them at 14, or whether you think they could trade up, and if you think that's more likely for them.
I don't think trading up. I just don't see it. I don't know. I mean, again, anything's possible. I'm not going to eliminate it, but trading up to me seems non-Raven-esque in all the years. They only, maybe one time? I think, did they trade up for Joe or something?
Yeah, they traded down, then traded back up.
They traded down, then traded back. That's what okay. No, I think if you want to get fancy with the spices, trading down seems more of an Eric DaCosta thing. There's just nobody in that draft that really just like makes you just want to jump up and get them. If you're Baltimore, I think the defensive guys are who they are, and I just don't see it. I don't see it as like this strong suit. We have to have you type of a thing that you're going to give up other picks. Yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, I think if a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau falls to 7, maybe there's a situation where you move up or something like that. But again, it's a matter of the Ravens wanting more swings in this draft, and I feel like they should consider a trade up if somebody does fall, and there's like this astronomical fall that we don't really foresee. And sometimes that usually happens almost every draft, where there's that one player where you're thinking, how is this guy falling so far? And that far fall could be a guy who's supposed to go in the top 2 fall into 7, and then you maybe make that move. But it feels like to me trading down is the more likely possibility at this point. I'm not saying trading up is a complete 0% chance, because again, they could entertain it for sure, and I think they should in some situations. But at the same time, you look at it and you're thinking, well, if they want more picks, they could trade down and then trade back up. And let's talk about the Joe Flacco situation there, Q. Do you think that if the Ravens would trade down to a 27 or 28, that if there's a player that they like, let's say at 21, and they're kind of having that pick come up, you would be okay with them moving back up and surrendering some of that capital they acquired?
Yeah, because now you're talking about, you know, that's in that Raven model. Trading up sounds desperate if it's higher than 14. Trading up to from 27 to 24 or whatever sounds a little bit more Raven like, and also it means that the board, as we will be hearing ad nauseum from Eric DeCosta and company, but they're going to stick with their board. That's their model. And again, there's a ton of evaluation that went into putting that board together. So they must really feel like, man, if we don't get this guy, I just have a funny feeling he's going to be gone. You're going to have guys just jump up off the table, and um, you're going to really be going after said player. Then I think that that's something that is a real possibility.
And it seems like in the DeCosta era, there have been trade downs coupled by trade ups coupled with trade downs. And that doesn't involve just the first round. They traded up for Miles Boykin, for example, in the 2019 draft. And I know now looking back on it, wasn't the best trade up in all things considered. But, those are those things where you maybe trade up 10 spots for a guy that you really like after trading down. That's something I think you're right. It's a very Raven-esque move and a smart one, honestly, in my opinion. We'll head into our final break here now, though. When we get back, we'll be diving in to some more draft talk for this Ravens team, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Still a ton to talk about here on Locked On Ravens. First, let me tell you a bit about Built Bar. And again, this time of year, people give up on their New Year's resolutions all the time, but don't do that this year. Stick to your resolution to eat right and do it with Built Bar. If you haven't tried the Built Bar Puffs, you are missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars, the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy and marshmallowy and actually very, very good. All Built Bars covered in 100% real chocolate. And you can get these low-calorie, high-protein bars in a bunch of different locations. They contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. A ton of great flavors also. Mint brownie is my favorite, but you also got coconut, almond, etc. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, get 50% off of your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. We're back here. Our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Allsharker still here with Qadry Ismail. And thank you for making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the day. Go make Locked On NFL Draft your second listen of the day with former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker and Ryan Tracy. But Q, there is so much uncertainty, but it's like exciting uncertainty with this draft, because soon we're going to know who the next rookie class for this Ravens team is. They might not have 10 draft picks when it's all said and done. They might have 9. They might have 12. We don't know. But I want to get your thoughts just overall. We've been talking about this draft for a very, very long time on this show. And there are so many good prospects. It's a very deep class. And we've had the conversation about, would you like to see him end with more picks? Would you like to see him end with less picks? But from a needs-based perspective for you, where are some positions that you're looking at where you're saying these are absolutely must-draft positions, where you're not even just looking at one player, but you're looking at 2, maybe even 3 players at that position?
Yeah, go right on over to the defensive side of the ball. I think that's where you got to start. And I think, honestly, you can end there too. Sure, tight end, you should consider, but there's potential for an undrafted rookie free agent over in that position. You have Patrick Ricard back. There's some value there. When you look at defensively, though, as much as you sign Josh Bynes back, I think you need to still look at linebacker. I think D-line, interior, as well as rush has to be priority. It has to be priority number one. Has to be a scenario where, you can't have a weak rotation and expect to compete in the AFC North. You got to be able to put pressure on the quarterback, but you also got to be able to be physical up front and not get dominated. So I think ultimately it starts and ends with defense. Sure, perhaps maybe a corner. And that's, again, a later pick. But I think defensively, and then maybe a potential offensive lineman later in the draft as well to give you an opportunity to just continue to have more quality depth at the offensive line position. So I think defense, you're looking at D line, rush, linebacker, corner in that order. And then offensively, you know, tight end, O line, well, probably O line first, excuse me, O line, tight end, um, and then get fancy with the spices with your undrafted rookie free agents. If there's a running back out there that really wows you late in the draft as well, that's an opportunity as well with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbin coming off of knee injuries. Those are concerns as far as depth is for this ball club. So I would say looking at this draft, go defense, then kind of fill in some holes of depth need when it comes to offensive line, tight end, and running back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's right along where I have too. But hey, there's a running back out there that wows me in free agency. His name is Devonta Freeman. If you haven't heard of him before, you might have heard of him once or twice. But I'm just telling you that if you want to go undrafted free agent, you got the veteran. I see you're looking all pleased with my Devonta Freeman, my Devonta Freeman love.
The Cleveland Browns are still the offseason Super Bowl champions until they're dethroned. Hopefully, they will Devontae Freeman somebody and be still the champions, and then in the regular season get whooped up on. But we don't know yet.
It feels like the Ravens are going to take a running back in the draft, so my Devonta Freeman agenda might have to kind of go by the wayside after that happens. Because if they invest a 4th-round pick in a running back, they're probably not going to sign a veteran, like even a Melvin Gordon, who I know we talked about. But it feels like running back's a position that's kind of like that sneaky need, and it could be Freeman, but it might be different when we're talking again in Freeman. His time in Baltimore might officially be over because a new rookie running back comes in, and that's what ends up happening.
Fresh leg.
Exactly, and that feels like what it's going to be at the running back position. They want to have somebody with those fresh legs, and Freeman, I know it drove you crazy seeing him about to break that run, and then you see him tackled by the shoelace, and you're like, come on, let's get that run. So
The most exciting 8 yards ever.
he'll have that title. Hey, he'll have that title forever. So he'll at least have that in Baltimore. But I think when looking at this draft, there are players, there are great prospects all around it. But the first pick that this team has, whether it is a trade up, a trade down, or just staying at 14, do you have a favorite prospect or two that you're kind of honing in on as the draft comes closer for that first selection for the Ravens?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't really go heavy this year with names. Um, I didn't see. Here's why: because the years that I did, and it's not, maybe it's just me being me. That's fine. But I felt like, I get it all into it, and then next thing you know, they pick people that I didn't know about. Frankly, I didn't know about um, James Prochet. I didn't know about Miles Boykin. I didn't know about Marquise Brown. Heck, um, Patrick Queen, they talked about it, and I kind of was just looking it up, but I didn't think the Ravens were going to get him. Um, so I'm serious. I'm changing it up. I'm la la la. I'm going to be a fan. Sit back and watch. It's not that. It's not that you're in a scenario where because you don't know the names, I want to be surprised. I'm curious as to how you're going to shape this draft. But I know for me, like this, maybe I'll change it up again next year and go all in and study it up again. But I know there's some good names out there, but nobody really. I'm just going to just blur out names and just think that, oh yeah, this is easy peasy. We're just going to get him, only to be disappointed yet again.
Yeah, and that's a fine way to approach it. Like for this team, I go back. There was only one name in the early rounds that I didn't know, and that actually surprised me going all the way back. Kamale Correa was someone the Ravens drafted him. I had no
Mm.
clue who he was, and I'm like, who? Like who?
Yeah.
It wasn't like oh, I don't like this pick. Who is this guy? I just genuinely did not know that he was an
Right.
option for them, and even like a recent example of that is Ben Mason. I was like, oh, like Ben Mason, okay, fullback tight end guy, all right. But yeah, it seems like with the prospects available, there are so many different scenarios where this pick could be a corner, it could be a defensive lineman, it could be an edge rusher, it could be a wide receiver, probably not, but like it could be a wide receiver. So you have all these different names out there. If I had to put a name on someone who is realistic and someone who fills a need, it feels like Jermaine Johnson is that guy who could potentially fall, and he's somebody who was maybe slated to go. He's like the fourth best edge rusher, but again, with the edge rushers the Ravens have on this roster, he could be a really solid option for him, especially with Tyus Bowser still recovering from that injury and everything that ends up going on with that. But Q, finally, I want to ask you about positions that you just do not want this team to draft. Like, obviously, the Ravens are pretty set at quarterback, right? Maybe a third stringer in the 7th round, but I feel like that's more of an undrafted free agency or veteran type thing. Are there any positions where you're just sitting back and you're thinking, I do not want this team to draft anyone in all 7 rounds of that position?
Honestly, it sounds weird because corner, I would say you can never have enough corners, but for the first time, like if truly everybody's healthy, I would say safety. Williams, I think, is a game changer. I think Tony Jefferson does his thing. I would say I definitely safety. That's easy for me in the grand scheme of things because you can get the depth that you want from offensive line. Quarterback, yeah, of course, you're going to have a camp body arm. That's just nature of the beast. And that guy will know it when he gets into camp. That's fine. Receiver, you as much as, I think that they're set at receiver, then what's going to happen is that they're going to get some guys as undrafted rookie free agents. And again, they're going to be those camp type bodies. It's just the way it is. So curious to see, but those are, that would be where my thinking would be on that.
Yeah, for me, I agree. I've been on the no safety train ever since Marcus Williams and Tony Jefferson and Geno Stone, like all these guys were brought in. They have a ton of depth there. I feel like an undrafted free agent at safety, I'm totally okay with that. But a draft pick, I feel like you can just invest that in other positions you would need right now. If you're the Ravens quarterback, same thing. I think if you're going that route, undrafted free agency is probably the best thing for them to do. But actually, I had something pop in my mind, Q. There's a generational punter prospect in this class that people have going in like the 4th round sometimes, the 3rd round sometimes. Would you be willing to take a punter in this class, knowing Sam Cook is, he's getting up there in age a little bit. He's still very good at what he does, but you could save a little cap space with releasing him as a punter or prospect. You would be able to say, all right, I want the Ravens to take a punter in this class.
No. Mm-mm. Wolfpack, you don't mess with the Wolfpack. Morgan Cox, you messed with him. That's fine. Wolfpack Part 2, I don't even know the long snapper's name. Don't really care. That's mean, but it is. It's just the old football player to me. I think ultimately, Sam, sure, you can say from a salary cap standpoint, sure, you can do some other number crunching, but my God, that dude is still productive. And bring somebody in camp to compete / save his leg. But yeah, no, he's legit. He only threw one incompletion. I think last year was his first time it didn't get executed the correct way. But outside of that, homeboy is the guy when it comes to just, understanding the little nuances of being an ace special teamer. He should, you know what? If Matt Stover is in the Ring of Honor, I absolutely would have no problem putting another special teamer likes of Sam Cook in the Ring of Honor.
Oh, I agree, 100%. And honestly, you know what? Now that I think about it, the Ravens don't need to draft a 3rd-string quarterback. They have their 3rd-string quarterback in Sam Cook. Let him be that guy. Let Sam Cook and be the guy who can go out there in a pinch and hopefully up that completion percentage back to around 99%, since unfortunately it won't be back around 100 ever again. But Q, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hopping on here. It was a blast talk with you again, and I'm excited to see how this Ravens team ends up shaping up with this draft and just everything that comes with it.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I mean, again, if we can just continue to do what we do as far as, acquiring picks, acquiring talent, and then, now it's up to John Harbaugh once that roster is set, if you will, to get them ready. And I'm sure his coaching staff will be chomping at the bit.
Again, a big thanks to Q for hopping on talking Ravens football with me. And thank you for listening and tuning in, whether that is in audio form or in video form. If you're here with us on YouTube, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Our next goal is 2,000 subscribers. So thank you to everybody who has already subscribed. And if you're thinking about it, I highly recommend you do so. And thank you for your future subscription in an audio form. Thank you for turning notifications on and following along through audio form. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. When we get back here on Monday, we'll be diving into the last mock draft Monday of 2022 draft season. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And I will see you on Monday.